When I first saw her again, she didn't look at me, and that was the real punishment. Not the sleepless nights, not the silence that echoed between us, but the way her eyes passed through me like I was air. 3 years ago, I sold my soul for a number, a transfer that erased my debts and destroyed my heart. He came to me with a glass of whiskey and a cruel offer. Leave her. You can't afford to love her. And I believed him. I thought love was a luxury, something only the rich could afford, so I left. I told her I didn't love her anymore, and I made sure she believed it. I watched her cry, and I didn't even hold her, because the money in my account was warm and her tears were cold. But now, seeing her smile in someone else's arms, I realize something terrifying. She didn't just move on. She learned to live without me, and in doing so, she made me the ghost of her past, the man who traded love for numbers. What I didn't know back then was that she paid every drop of interest with tears, and now it's my turn to collect the debt I can never repay. They say debt doesn't just chain your bank account, it chains your soul. Every morning, I woke up to that weight sitting on my chest like a ghost that refused to leave. The numbers haunted me. Lines of red ink, interest rates that felt like bloodstains I couldn't wash off. The shop I had built with my hands, the one I believed would one day bear my name in gold, had fallen silent. The machine stood still, the rent was overdue, and the calls kept coming. Collectors, banks, old friends who had lent me money out of pity. My name had become a whisper of disappointment, and yet, every night, she came. Mira. She'd knock softly, as if afraid to disturb the ruins of my pride. I'd open the door, and there she'd be, holding takeout boxes, her hair tied messily, her smile too bright for the gloom I lived in. "Have you eaten?" she'd ask. I hadn't, but I'd lie, pretending I had. Because how do you tell the woman you love that hunger feels easier than watching her worry? Sometimes she'd sit beside me on the couch, her hand finding mine like it always used to. She'd talk about her day at the clinic, about patience, about hope, and I'd nod, pretending to listen. But inside, all I could think was, I can't give you anything, not even peace. The rain came often that month. I remember the smell of damp bills stacked on my table, the ink bleeding like my patience. The ceiling leaked above the window frame. One more thing I couldn't afford to fix. When I closed my eyes, I saw my father in the hospital bed. Pale, tired, still pretending not to know how much everything cost. He used to say, "A man's worth isn't measured by his bank account, Rian. It's measured by who stands beside him when the world collapses." But even that felt like a lie now, because the world had collapsed, and the only one standing beside me was the one I was dragging down. Mira didn't deserve to carry my failure. She deserved sunlight, not the storm I had become. The night Leon came, I almost didn't open the door. There was something about his knock, sharp, confident, the kind that doesn't wait for permission. When I finally let him in, the contrast was cruel. He was dressed in a tailored suit, smelling of money and control. I was in a wrinkled shirt with debt letters scattered like landmines around me. He looked around, smirking. I didn't think it had gotten this bad. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice sharper than I felt. He sat down on my couch, the same one Mira used to fall asleep on, and placed a silver briefcase on the coffee table. It clicked open with a sound that made my chest tighten. Inside, neat stacks of cash stared back at me. "I heard about your father," he said, "and your business. Rough luck." I hated how calm he sounded, how his words carried sympathy wrapped in arrogance. "What do you want, Leon?" He leaned back, studying me. "Mira talks about you, you know. Still defends you, still believes you'll make it." Hearing her name from his mouth felt like a violation. "She shouldn't," I muttered. "That's exactly what I thought," he replied smoothly. "Because she deserves better. You know that, don't you?" He pushed the briefcase closer. 50,000, enough to pay your debts, your father's bills, maybe even restart your business." My breath caught. "Why would you—" He cut me off with a raised hand. "Because I love her. Still do. And I can stand watching her waste her time on someone who can even stand on his own feet." His words hit harder than any debt notice ever had. "So what? You want me to take your money and vanish?" "Not vanish," he said. "Just walk away. Tell her it's over. She won't chase you. She'll hate you, but she'll heal. You'll fix your life. Everyone wins. Everyone wins." The phrase lingered, cruel and simple, but I didn't answer him, because somewhere deep down, a part of me wanted to believe it was possible, that I could save her by letting her hate me. After he left, I sat there in silence. The rain outside had turned to thunder. The briefcase sat in front of me, its reflection dancing in the puddles of light on the floor. It looked almost holy, like an escape hatch in physical form. I thought about Mira's laughter, the way she'd trace circles on my palm when she couldn't sleep. I thought about the hospital bills, the eviction notice, my father's medicine, and for the first time in months, I let myself imagine what it would feel like to breathe again, free from debt, from failure, from being the man she pitied. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at that money until dawn cracked the sky open. The next morning, Mira showed up with coffee. She smiled when she saw me, as if the world outside didn't exist. "Good morning," she said softly. Her hair glowed in the sunlight like something the world didn't deserve. I wanted to tell her everything. About Leon, about the offer, about how I didn't know if I could keep living like this. But when I looked into her eyes, I saw trust. Blind, beautiful, dangerous trust. And I realized something painful. She believed in me too much to ever let go. So I'd have to make her. That night, I walked to the hospital to see my father. He was asleep when I entered, the faint hum of the machines syncing with his breathing. I stood there for a long time, staring at the man who had raised me on borrowed hope. I thought of how proud he'd been when I opened my business, how ashamed I was now that I'd failed him. "I'm going to fix it, Dad," I whispered, "even if it kills me." When I left, I passed the hospital's donation board. Her name was on it. Mira Han, monthly contributor. Even in her own struggles, she was giving what little she had. And I was about to take money from the man who once broke her heart. Something inside me cracked, but not enough to stop me. I called Leon. He answered immediately. "Changed your mind? Where do I sign?" He chuckled. "Good choice." We met at a quiet cafe, the kind with dim lighting and too many secrets. The air smelled like burnt coffee and regret. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a document, short, cruel, binding, a confidentiality clause, a transaction of silence. I didn't read it twice. I didn't need to, because by then I'd already lost more than paper could record. When I signed, he nodded approvingly. "You did the right thing, Rian." The words felt like poison. I stood up and left before I could see the satisfaction in his eyes. Outside, the world looked cleaner. The rain had stopped. The streets gleamed under the city lights as if pretending to forgive me. But I knew better. Some sins don't wash away. They just sink deeper. That night, I went home to an apartment that no longer felt like mine. I opened the briefcase again. The money was still there. Heavy, unholy, final. And on my table beside the scattered bills sat a photo of Mira and me. It was taken last summer at the beach, her arms around me, her smile pressed against my shoulder. I turned it face down. The sound of the frame hitting the table was softer than I expected, almost merciful. Then I took a deep breath and dialed her number. "Hey," she answered, her voice warm, unaware of the storm about to break. "Can we talk?" I asked. "Of course. Is everything okay?" "No, but I said yes." When she came over, she brought a small painting with her, something she'd been working on for weeks. It was of the ocean, the same one where we'd watched the sunset last summer. I wanted you to have this, she said, smiling shyly. For hope. Hope. That word stabbed deeper than any insult could. She sat beside me, her hand brushing mine. You've been distant lately, she whispered. I'm worried about you. I stared at her, memorizing every detail. The freckle near her left eye, the softness in her voice, the way she leaned closer when she wanted to understand. And then I destroyed everything. Mira, we need to stop. She froze. Stop what? This, us. Her confusion was pure, painful. Rian, what are you talking about? I can't do this anymore, I said, each word a blade. You're better off without me. That's not true. It is. I forced my tone cold. I'm tired, Mira. You deserve someone stable, someone who can actually give you something. Her eyes filled before she could blink them away. Rian, don't do this. But I had to. I had to make her believe the lie. So I reached for the cruelest weapon I had. I don't love you anymore. Silence. For a second, I thought I'd stopped breathing. Her lips parted slightly like she couldn't find oxygen either. You're lying, she whispered. I'm not. The words felt like shards in my mouth. She stood up slowly, clutching the painting to her chest. Her tears fell silently, one by one, like raindrops hitting glass. I waited for you through everything, she said, her voice trembling. And this is how it ends? I couldn't answer. She nodded, as if realizing something she didn't want to believe. You always said love was about staying, even when it hurts. It is, I whispered, but sometimes leaving hurts less. She left without another word. When the door closed behind her, the silence roared. I sat there for hours, staring at the painting she'd forgotten on the table. The ocean, endless and blue, and I realized something devastating. The man drowning in that sea wasn't just me. It was us. When dawn came, I packed the briefcase into a drawer and stared at the painting again. The waves looked alive, almost mocking. I touched the edge of the canvas. The paint was still wet. And for the first time I wondered, if love is a debt, then what's the price of betrayal? I didn't know it yet, but the answer would come years later. Written not in ink, but in tears. Some nights stay inside you like a scar. Not healing, not hurting, just there, waiting to ache again when it rains. That night was one of them. The rain was slow and patient, the kind that doesn't crash but whispers, like it knows something you don't. Each drop tapped against the window pane like a countdown I didn't want to hear. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual, marking the last moments of something I no longer deserved to keep. Mira sat across from me on the couch, her knees pulled close, her hair damp from the drizzle outside. The lamp behind her cast a soft amber glow that wrapped around her like memory. Warm, fragile, fleeting. She looked at me, really looked, the kind of look that saw through everything. You've been quiet lately, she said softly. Even when you're here, you're somewhere else. I swallowed hard. My throat felt lined with glass. Just tired, I muttered, but the truth was uglier than exhaustion. It was betrayal with my signature on it. For days I had rehearsed the words. In the mirror, in the shower, in the dark. Each version sounded wrong. Too cruel, too empty, too alive. But they all ended the same way. With her crying and me pretending not to care. Because that's what I'd chosen. That's what I'd been paid for. I looked at her now, at the faint crease between her brows, the way her thumb absently traced the rim of her mug. I remembered how she used to draw little hearts on napkins when she was nervous. I used to tease her about it. Tonight, she didn't doodle. She just waited. The silence stretched, heavy, aching. Finally, she whispered, "Rian, what's wrong?" Everything. My father's fading health, the weight of Leon's briefcase, the sound of her name in another man's mouth. But I couldn't say any of it. Because how do you tell the person you love that you've already sold their happiness? I looked away, staring at the reflection of the city lights in the window. The rain blurred everything, like the world itself didn't want to see what was about to happen. "Mira," I began, my voice foreign even to myself. "I've been thinking." She smiled faintly. "About what?" "About us." The smile faltered. "Okay. I don't think this is working anymore." Her hand froze mid-motion. The mug clinked softly against the table. "What?" she breathed. I forced myself to keep my eyes on the rain. If I looked at her, I'd forget the script. My voice trembled, so I hardened it. "I don't love you anymore." The lie cut through the room like a blade, the kind that doesn't bleed right away. It just stings, waiting to sink deeper. She blinked, as if her mind needed time to translate the words. "You're joking." "I'm not." "Ryan, stop." She leaned forward, her voice shaking now. "You don't mean that. You've been stressed, I get it. We'll figure it out together, okay?" Together. That word used to be my anchor. Now it felt like a chain. "No," I said. "We won't." "Why are you saying this?" "Because it's the truth." "No," she whispered. "It's not." Her voice cracked, small, human, devastating. "Tell me what's really going on." I could have stopped there. I could have confessed everything. But Leon's words echoed in my head. "She'll heal faster if she hates you." So I went for the kill. "You're holding me back," I said, each syllable sharp enough to draw blood. "You make me feel trapped. I need space. I need someone who doesn't drown in emotions every time something goes wrong." Her eyes widened, the tears already gathering. "Someone else?" she whispered. I froze. The lie was right there, waiting. One final nail in the coffin. "Yes," I said. "There's someone else." Her lips trembled. The mug slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. The coffee spread like ink, seeping into the cracks of the tiles. She stared at it, dazed, as if she could glue both the cup and our relationship back together with the same trembling hands. "Who?" she asked finally. "Who is she?" I couldn't even think of a name. So I stayed silent, and that silence was its own confession. The first tear fell quietly, tracing the same path my hand once used to. "Was any of it real?" she asked. Her voice didn't accuse, it pleaded. It searched for some scrap of honesty in the wreckage I'd built. I swallowed the lump in my throat. It was. Once. Once? People change, Mira. No. Her voice hardened through the tears. You changed. You're changing right now. She stood up, arms crossed as if trying to hold herself together. You think this is what love is? Running when it's hard? Pretending you don't care? I didn't answer. She stepped closer, searching my face. Look at me. I couldn't. Rian, look at me. I turned, and that was my mistake, because her eyes broke me. They were raw, desperate, filled with a kind of pain that makes you want to rewrite time. You're lying, she said, voice trembling but sure. I can see it. Mira. No. She shook her head, tears falling faster now. If you really stopped loving me, say it again. Look me in the eye and say it. I tried. God, I tried. I don't love you. But the words cracked halfway. She heard it. I saw it in the way her lips quivered, how her breath hitched. She knew. But she also knew I wasn't going to tell her the truth. Not tonight. So she let it end. The storm outside grew louder. Lightning flashed across the window, painting her face in fleeting silver. I waited for you, she whispered. Through everything. Through your father's illness, your sleepless nights, your failures. I stayed. Her voice broke on the last word. And now you're just done? I wanted to say I'm doing this to save you. But the truth wouldn't save anyone tonight. So I said nothing. She nodded slowly, like her heart was catching up to the betrayal her mind had already understood. I hope she's worth it, she said finally. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. Tired in a way that made me realize I wasn't the only one drowning. She walked to the door, then stopped. "One day, you'll remember this moment," she said, "and it'll hurt more than it does now." Then she left. The door closed softly, but the silence that followed felt louder than thunder. I stood there, unable to breathe. The air felt heavier without her, like the room itself had exhaled for the last time. On the floor, the broken mug reflected fragments of her face, scattered and distorted. The painting she'd given me last night still leaned against the wall. The ocean she'd painted for hope. I stared at it, and something inside me twisted. The waves she painted weren't calm. They were violent, raging, like she already knew what was coming. I reached out, running my fingers over the brushstrokes. The paint was dry, but my hands came away wet. Not from the art, but from the tears I hadn't realized I'd started shedding. I walked to the window. The rain had thickened, hitting the glass in steady, merciless rhythm. Each drop sounded like her voice, the way she'd said my name, the way she'd whispered, "Don't do this." The city outside blurred into colorless streaks. Cars moved like ghosts through the mist, and I stood there, hollow. I told myself this was for her, that she'd thank me someday, that she'd find someone better, someone who didn't break when the bills came, someone who didn't sell his love for survival. But those were just excuses I fed to the echo of her absence. Because the truth was simpler. I didn't leave her to protect her. I left her because I was too much of a coward to watch her drown with me. Hours passed. The lights dimmed. I sat on the couch, staring at the broken mug, the spilled coffee, the ocean painting, the door she'd walked through. Each object had her fingerprints on it, ghosts of warmth fading too fast. At some point, I reached for my phone. Her name still glowed on the screen in our last message thread. "Mira, be strong, okay? I believe in you." I typed something, "I'm sorry," but deleted it, because the man who takes money to break a heart doesn't get to apologize. I went to bed that night without turning off the light. Sleep didn't come. Instead, memories played like film reels. Her laughter in the kitchen, her humming while brushing her hair, the way she'd draw constellations on fogged glass just to make me smile, and then her tears. The sound of her heart cracking in real time. The look on her face when I said there was someone else. I tried to imagine where she was now. Was she crying? Driving through the rain? Sitting somewhere trying to breathe through the ache I'd planted? The thought tore through me. I wanted to run after her, to take it all back, to tell her everything. But I didn't move, because once you've sold your truth, you can't buy it back. When morning came, the rain had stopped. The world outside looked clean again, deceptively calm. The sun bled faintly through the curtains, catching on the glass shards from the broken mug. They glittered like tiny pieces of a heart I didn't deserve to hold. I walked over and swept them up carefully, but a piece nicked my finger. Blood welled up, small, red, inevitable. It stung, but I didn't flinch, because maybe that was the price of every lie. Tiny cuts you keep pretending don't hurt until they do. I placed the painting back on the wall. It looked different now, not hopeful, but haunted. The waves looked like tears frozen mid-motion. And for the first time, I noticed something she'd hidden in the corner of the canvas. Tiny letters, barely visible under the blue. It read, "For us, no matter what storms come." I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow in the empty room. The storm had come, and I was the one who started it. That night, I dreamed of her. She stood in the rain again, looking at me with eyes that no longer begged for explanations. She just asked one question. Why wasn't love enough? I woke up shaking, the echo of her voice still in the room, and I realized something cruel. You can lie to the person you love, you can even lie to yourself. But when love dies by your own hands, the silence never lets you forget its name. Money has no scent, they say. But that day, it did. It smelled of cold metal and moral decay. When the bank notification buzzed on my phone, I didn't even flinch. The screen lit up with numbers I'd never seen before. Clean, infinite, silent. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like a receipt for my own soul. The transfer was done. Leon had kept his word. I stared at the message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen, waiting for something to shift. For joy, relief, something. But all I felt was stillness. The kind that comes after an explosion, when the smoke settles and you realize what's left of you. I went through the motions like a machine. First, I called the debt collector. His tone changed the second I mentioned full payment. The relief in his voice was almost insulting, like congratulating a man for paying the ransom on his own heart. Then, the hospital. The nurse at the counter smiled when I cleared my father's medical balance. "Thank you, Mr. Ryan," she said warmly. "Your father's treatment will continue without interruption." I nodded, numb. Without interruption. Unlike love. Unlike Mira. When I left the hospital, the wind smelled like antiseptic and rain, a cruel mix of healing and grief. Back in my apartment, I placed the receipts on the table. One for the hospital, one for the business loan, one for my rent. Each paper fluttered slightly under the ceiling fan, ghosts of transactions that should have meant peace. But the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The couch still had her folded blanket on it. The faint outline of her sitting there, waiting for me to come home, still haunted the cushion. In the corner, the ocean painting she'd made, the one she'd forgotten the night I ended us, leaned against the wall. I stared at it for a while. The blue looked darker now, heavier. Maybe it was always this way and I just refused to see it. I knelt down and brushed the edge of the frame with my fingers. There was a small smear of coffee near the corner. From that night. The stain looked like a bruise. My phone rang, cutting through the silence. Leon. I didn't want to answer, but my thumb betrayed me. "Hello?" "Payment confirmed," he said, voice smooth as always. "I told you it'd be simple." I said nothing. "You did the right thing, Ryan," he continued. "You freed her. She'll move on. You can focus on rebuilding." "Rebuilding what?" I asked quietly. He paused. "Your life, of course." But my life was her, and I'd just sold it for numbers on a screen. "I don't think you understand what you've done," I said. He laughed, a short, dry sound. "You think you were good for her? Look at yourself. You were drowning, dragging her down. Now she gets to breathe again. You should thank me." "Is that what this is for you?" I said, voice breaking. "Some act of mercy?" "Perspective, my friend. You'll see it soon enough." He hung up before I could reply. The silence after that call was deafening. I poured myself a drink I couldn't afford anymore. Not with money, at least. The whiskey burned on the way down, but it didn't warm me. It just left a hollow taste. I sat there, watching the rain through the cracked window. The droplets raced each other down the glass, blurring the city lights outside. Somewhere out there, she was probably crying. Or maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was staring at her own reflection, wondering how love could vanish overnight. And I realized something cruel. She was still paying for my decision, in tears, while I paid mine in silence. The next morning, I woke up to light I didn't deserve. The sky was golden, calm, like nothing had happened. But the room still smelled of guilt. I went through the motions again, shaving, cleaning, sorting out old bills, as if pretending to function would make it true. But every object reminded me of her. The toothbrush beside the sink, the mug with the chipped handle she loved, the hair tie she'd left on my desk, forgotten in the storm. I picked it up. The elastic had stretched out, worn thin, like us. I slipped it around my wrist. I don't know why. Maybe as proof that I hadn't imagined her. Around noon, I got a call from the hospital again. "Your father's improving," the nurse said cheerfully. "The new medication's working." I should have smiled. I didn't. Instead, I asked, "Did he ask about me?" A pause. "Yes," she said softly. "He asked if Mira's still taking care of you." My throat closed. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "She's not," I managed. The nurse hesitated, then said quietly, "He said she's a good girl. You're lucky." Lucky. The word hit harder than any debt ever had. I walked to the river that evening, the one Mira loved to visit when she needed peace. The bridge was slick with rain, the water beneath dark and restless. She used to say rivers reminded her of second chances. No matter how dirty the water gets, she'd tell me, it still finds its way forward. I watched the current now, wondering if she was somewhere upstream, letting it wash her pain away. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a single coin, the first from Leon Audier's payment. I rolled it between my fingers, feeling the cold bite of it. "Here's your charity," I whispered and tossed it into the water. It disappeared instantly, swallowed by the current, just like everything else I'd loved. When I returned home, the apartment felt smaller. The air was thick with disinfectant. I'd cleaned earlier, trying to erase her scent, but it only made it worse. The sterility mocked me. The painting caught my eye again. Under the soft lamplight, the waves looked alive, moving, breathing, like they were watching me. I dragged the chair closer and sat down. I stared at it until the world blurred around the edges, and then I noticed something I hadn't before. Faint pencil lines under the paint, words half erased. I leaned in. It read, "Don't let the tide take you too." My chest tightened. She must have written it before painting over it. A message hidden in blue. I reached out and pressed my palm against it as if I could feel her through the canvas. But all I felt was texture and emptiness. That night, I drank again. Not out of habit, but desperation. I wanted to forget her voice, her tears, the sound of the door closing. But whiskey doesn't erase. It magnifies. Every memory came back sharper. The warmth of her laugh, the way she'd trace letters on my hand when she was bored, the softness in her eyes the night I destroyed her. By the third glass, I was talking to her ghost. "You said you believed in me," I murmured into the empty room. But I didn't believe in myself. The echo of my voice filled the space, bouncing off walls that once held laughter. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you," I said quietly. "I left because I was scared you'd stop loving me first." The rain started again outside, like a cruel applause. At some point, I must have fallen asleep on the couch. When I woke, the briefcase was still there on the table, open, untouched. The stacks of bills looked obscene under the morning light. For a moment, I thought of burning them, of watching the flames eat through every note, turning my guilt into ash. But then I thought of my father, of the medication, of survival. So instead, I picked up one bundle, held it against my forehead and whispered, "Forgive me." But money doesn't forgive. It just waits to be spent. Days passed like that. Routine without purpose, life without sound. I paid every last debt, every overdue bill. And when it was all done, I stood in the middle of the apartment, surrounded by clean ledgers and paid notices. Freedom. That's what it was supposed to feel like. Instead, I felt stripped bare, like I'd emptied everything out of myself, and still the weight remained. That's when I understood it. You can buy silence, you can buy comfort, you can even buy survival, but you can't buy back the version of yourself that someone once loved. Late that evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Just one line. "You don't have to be the villain to let her go." I stared at it, my heart stuttering. It wasn't her number, but I knew it was meant for me. Leon. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off the phone and walked to the balcony. The city stretched out below me, neon lights flickering like dying promises. And for the first time, I admitted it aloud. "I'm debt-free," I whispered, "but I've never been poorer." The wind carried my voice away. Maybe it reached her, maybe it didn't. But I hoped, somewhere beneath the same sky, she was learning how to breathe again, because I wasn't. Not yet. The night ended quietly. I sat by the window, watching the rain return. Relentless, cleansing. The painting stared back at me from across the room, its waves frozen mid-motion, forever chasing a horizon they'd never reach. I realized then that love was the same. A current you could fight against but never really escape. And maybe I didn't deserve to, because some debts aren't paid with money. They're paid with silence and time and the weight of knowing that somewhere in the city, the person you broke is still healing from the wound you gave her. And you're just the ghost left counting the cost. She vanished like morning mist, quietly, completely, without warning. No texts, no calls, not even a shadow left behind in the places she used to linger. For weeks I searched for her in the patterns of my days, in the quiet of my phone, in the hollow echo of her name. It was as if she had folded herself out of the world we shared. The bakery on 5th, where she used to buy her favorite bread, had new owners now. The art cafe where she spent hours sketching was gone, replaced by a glass showroom that smelled of varnish and strangers. Her online profiles were wiped clean, not deactivated, erased, like she wanted the world to forget she ever existed in it. And maybe that was her final act of strength. Not revenge, not anger, just disappearance. Rumors bloomed where silence took root. She moved abroad, someone said at the gallery. She's engaged to Leon, another whispered at a bar. I pretended not to care. I even laughed once, the kind of brittle laugh that tastes like copper and denial. But at night, when the city fell asleep, I'd scroll through old photos, zooming into her smile as if I could fall back into it. I told myself she was happy, that maybe, in some cruel twist of fate, my betrayal had freed her. But deep down, I knew her better than anyone. She wasn't the kind of woman who rebounded. She rebuilt. And rebuilding meant tearing down everything that once reminded her of me. I started running into traces of her where I least expected them. A painting in a cafe. Soft watercolors of waves, her signature brush style. A charity art event flyer. Curated by M. Han. It was her handwriting, I was sure. She hadn't vanished, she'd evolved. Somewhere out of reach, somewhere I no longer belonged. One night I stood in front of the cafe where her painting hung. It was raining again. Always raining in my story. The canvas was titled Unpaid Interest. I froze. The colors were hauntingly familiar. Muted blues, streaks of gold, and a faint silhouette of two figures standing apart under a storm. One holding an umbrella, the other drenched. That's when I understood. The painting wasn't about love. It was about debt, the emotional kind. And I was the one still paying the interest. Days blurred into weeks. I stopped checking my phone, stopped eating properly, stopped pretending. It's strange how the absence of a person can make a room louder. Every creak of the floorboard sounded like her footsteps leaving again. Every gust of wind carried her perfume for half a second, then took it back. I started keeping her ocean painting in the hallway, the one she'd left behind. Every morning, I'd stop in front of it like a ritual, tracing the hidden words under the paint. Don't let the tide take you too. But it had already taken me. One afternoon, I visited her old neighborhood. Her building door was locked, paint peeling. The mailboxes were all new. Her name gone, replaced by someone else's. I stood there staring at the empty slot where her letters used to be. There was a faint outline where her nameplate had been. Mira Han, now just a lighter rectangle on the metal. An old landlady shuffled past, squinting at me. Looking for someone? Mira, I said, my voice softer than I intended. Mira Han. She used to live here. She thought for a moment. Oh, the painter girl. Sweet one. Always smiled at everyone. She moved out months ago. Do you know where she went? The woman shook her head. Didn't say. Left quietly. Paid her rent early. Cleaned the place spotless. Said she was traveling somewhere new. Traveling? That sounded like her. She'd always said she wanted to see the world, to find color where others only saw gray. "Did she leave anything behind?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. The old woman frowned, thinking. Then she said, "Just one thing. A box of paint tubes. Dried up, though. I threw them away. Thrown away, like us." That night, I dreamed of her. She was standing at the train station, her suitcase by her side, hair dancing in the wind. I was running toward her, shouting her name, but no sound came out. She looked right at me, eyes filled with that quiet sorrow I'd memorized, and then she smiled. Not the kind of smile that invites you back, the kind that forgives you enough to let you stay gone. I woke up with tears on my pillow. It's cruel, isn't it, to love someone enough to ruin them, and still want to be forgiven by them. Weeks later, I saw her again. Not in person, but in a gallery brochure left on my doorstep. It was for an art exhibition titled Echoes of the Absent. The cover had a familiar touch. Watercolor streaks, golden undertones, the ghost of a horizon line. I flipped through it, heart pounding, and there she was. Mira Han, featured artist. Her bio read like poetry. Her work captures the silence that follows love, the kind that rebuilds rather than regrets. I ran my fingers over the words, every letter a quiet reminder of how far she'd gone to heal. She'd turned pain into art, tears into legacy. And me? I was still just a man with receipts and regrets. The exhibition opened a week later. I told myself I wouldn't go, that I didn't deserve to. But some ghosts are too loud to ignore. So I went. The gallery was bright, quiet, filled with whispers and the soft clinking of glasses. Her paintings lined the walls, each one a storm disguised as calm. And then I saw it. A painting at the center of the room, framed in gold. The goodbye I lied about. My breath caught. It was us, unmistakably. Two figures under a broken umbrella, the man's face hidden in shadow, the woman's eyes red but defiant. The plaque beneath it read, "Sometimes the cruelest truth is the one told to protect love." For a long time, I just stood there, unable to move. Every brushstroke felt like a confession. Hers, mine, ours. I thought of walking away, but then I noticed something in the corner of the canvas. Faint letters carved into the paint. MH and RS. She hadn't erased me completely. She'd just turned me into art. I waited until the gallery emptied, then walked closer. The curator, a kind man with soft eyes, approached me. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. "Yes," I whispered. "It's haunting." "She left the country right after finishing this series," he continued. "Didn't tell anyone where she was going. Said she was done painting about pain." "Done?" I asked. He nodded. "She said she'd already buried her ghosts on canvas." My throat tightened. So that's what I'd become. A ghost in her gallery. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air was cool, the streetlights trembling in puddles. I stood there for a long time, holding the exhibition brochure, staring at her picture, her smile softer now, lighter. There was peace in her eyes. And I realized something. All this time, I thought I wanted to find her to apologize, to beg, to explain. But what I really wanted was proof that she survived me, that she found color again after I drained it from her world. And she had, spectacularly. As I walked home, I passed the river again, the same one we'd stood by years ago. The water shimmered under the streetlights, restless, alive. I took out the hair tie I still wore around my wrist, the last piece of her I'd held on to. I looked at it for a long time, the worn elastic, the faded color. Then, quietly, I let it fall into the river. It floated for a moment, then sank, vanishing beneath the current. I felt lighter. Not free, but lighter. They say prayers don't reach the people you've betrayed. Maybe that's true, but I still whispered one into the wind that night. "I hope you're happy, Mira." The wind didn't answer. But somewhere far away, maybe she smiled. Not because she heard me, but because she no longer needed to. And that, I think, is what real forgiveness looks like. When the person you hurt finally becomes untouchable, not out of distance, but peace. I walked home slowly, rain beginning to fall again. Each drop felt softer this time, like it wasn't punishing me anymore, just washing me clean enough to start over. 3 years. That's how long it took for her ghost to turn into a person again. 3 years since the night I traded her heart for numbers. 3 years since her name became a wound I learned to live around. And then, suddenly, there she was. Not a memory this time, not a painting or rumor, but flesh, breath, grace. I hadn't gone there looking for her. I was at the charity gala because my company, the one I rebuilt from the ashes of guilt, had been asked to sponsor a small exhibition. I wore the same kind of suit I used to hate. Polished, stiff, expensive, the kind that made it easy to pretend you were fine. The hall glowed gold under the chandeliers, full of laughter and clinking glasses. Everywhere I turned, people were smiling. But the moment she stepped onto the stage, all the light bent toward her. Mira. She wore silver, not glittering but soft, like moonlight filtered through fog. Her hair was shorter now, tucked neatly behind her ears, but her eyes, they were the same. The kind of eyes that could see through you, past the mask, past the years, straight into the ache you thought you'd buried. "Please welcome," the host announced, Dr. Mira Han, founder of the Han Foundation for Debt Relief. My breath caught. Dr. Mira Han. She'd done it. She had taken everything that broke me, that broke us, and built something out of it. The applause thundered. I clapped too, my hands trembling. She stepped to the microphone, composed, radiant, and for a moment I could almost convince myself this was someone else. Someone who'd never known me, never cried my name in the rain. 3 years ago, she began, her voice calm, low, certain. I was lost. My chest tightened. I watched someone I loved disappear, she continued, not because they died, but because life took from them more than they could give back. I learned that sometimes people drown quietly behind smiles and promises. Her words cut through me like glass. She wasn't looking at me, but she didn't have to. Every syllable carried my reflection. "That's why I started this foundation," she said, "to help those buried under invisible chains, people who've forgotten that they still deserve to breathe." Applause filled the room again, but I couldn't move. Her voice had softened, matured. The same warmth was there, but tempered by something steadier, something almost untouchable. When her gaze swept across the audience, I felt it before I saw it. And then, she found me. For one suspended second, the room disappeared. No sound, no movement, just her and me. Two ghosts in a crowd of strangers. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. Her eyes met mine with a calm so piercing it felt like judgment and mercy intertwined. No hatred, no love, just quiet recognition. And that hurt more than any insult could, because once her gaze was fire. Now it was ice. When her speech ended, she smiled for the cameras, shook hands, thanked donors. Every movement graceful, deliberate, like she'd rehearsed peace until it became muscle memory. I stood at the edge of the hall, watching her glide through the crowd. Every man who spoke to her smiled a little too long. Every woman leaned in close, like she carried gravity. And she did. Mira had become what she always dreamed of being, a force that healed others, while I was still trying to forgive myself for wounding her. Later, when most people were lost in laughter and champagne, I found myself by the balcony, the one overlooking the city skyline. The night air was cool, and the lights shimmered on the water below like scattered hope. I was staring at the horizon when I heard a voice behind me. "Still avoiding crowds, Rian?" Her tone was soft, neutral, but familiar enough to freeze me. I turned, and there she was, closer now than I'd seen her in years. Up close, time had changed her in subtle ways. her posture straighter, her expression calmer. The lines near her eyes weren't from sorrow anymore. They were from living. "Mira," I said, her name breaking somewhere between guilt and disbelief. She smiled faintly. "You look different." "So do you," I managed. You look happy." "I am," she said simply. It wasn't pride, it wasn't bitterness, just truth. Silence stretched between us. The city hummed below, patient. "I saw your foundations work," I said. "You're helping people who can't afford to lose what I did," she finished gently. I froze. She turned to look over the railing, her fingers tracing the cool metal. "It's strange," she said softly, "how pain can turn into purpose when you stop feeding it regret." "Mira, I never—" She looked at me then, eyes steady. "You did what you thought you had to do." Her calmness was unbearable, because I wanted her to scream, to accuse me, to feel, but she'd already done all that. Years ago, when I walked away, and now she'd moved past it, past me. "Leon told me everything, you know," she said quietly. I blinked. What? "He came to me a year later, apologized, said he'd manipulated both of us." Her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I told him he didn't need to. You already did enough apologizing for both of you." In silence. My throat burned. "I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," she said, "but you did." The words were simple, but they landed like a confession. We stood there for a while, not speaking. Just two lives intersecting again after taking opposite roads. The orchestra inside started playing a slow song, the kind we used to dance to in our apartment, barefoot on the cracked floor. She heard it too. Her shoulders stiffened for a moment, then relaxed. "I used to hate this song," she murmured. Then I realized it wasn't the song I hated. It was the memory. She glanced at me again, eyes soft. "You're not the man you were, Rian. I can see that." "Does that change anything?" I asked. She shook her head, the silver fabric of her dress catching the light. "It's not supposed to." I wanted to tell her everything, how I'd rebuilt myself piece by piece, how I still carried her painting like a mirror of my mistakes. But the words stayed trapped behind my teeth. Instead, I said the only thing that mattered. "I'm sorry." She smiled, small and sad. "I know, and that's enough." Then she turned to leave. "Mira," I said quickly, desperate. "Wait." She paused, half-turned. The words caught in my throat. "I still think of you." Her eyes softened, but her voice was gentle, final. "Then think kindly." She walked away, not like she was escaping, but like she'd already arrived somewhere I could never follow. Every step she took was a goodbye I hadn't earned the right to say. When she disappeared back into the light of the ballroom, I stayed on the balcony, the city sprawling beneath me like a map of what-ifs. Inside, the crowd cheered as she announced another donation, her voice ringing clear, certain, healed. Mine trembled in the dark, whispering prayers too late to matter. I left, quietly, slipping through the side door. Outside, the rain had started again. Soft this time, not punishing. Each drop felt like forgiveness I hadn't asked for. As I walked to my car, I looked up at the glowing billboard above the building. It read, "The Han Foundation, because no one should pay alone." I smiled bitterly. She'd taken my weakness and turned it into her mission. The thing that broke us had become the thing that made her whole. And maybe that's what love really is. Not staying, not returning, but transforming the hurt into something that can heal others. When I reached home, I found the ocean painting still waiting by the hallway. The colors had faded over time, but the hidden words beneath were still there. "Don't let the tide take you too." I touched the frame and whispered, "I didn't. You taught me how to swim." Outside, thunder rolled softly in the distance. It didn't sound like punishment anymore. It sounded like closure. That night, I slept without dreams for the first time in years. Because sometimes, peace doesn't come from being forgiven. It comes from knowing that the person you wronged doesn't need to forgive you anymore because they were already free. And as the rain whispered against my window, I realized something that made my chest ache with quiet gratitude. Mira was never my redemption. She was my reminder that love, real love, doesn't die when it's broken. It just changes form until it becomes something holy. The night refused to end. Even after the gala lights dimmed and laughter faded, I stayed behind, lingering in the hollow echoes of applause that weren't meant for me. The sound of her voice still haunted the air, soft as forgiveness, sharp as consequence. But peace never stays long when guilt owes interest. I was heading toward the parking lot when I heard it. A familiar voice, low and arrogant, the kind that slithered through polished words. Leon. I froze near the corner of the hallway, hidden behind a marble pillar. His tone carried that same self-satisfied drawl I remembered from years ago, the one that made every lie sound like a favor. He was talking to a journalist, young, eager, her recorder light blinking red. "So you're saying you knew Dr. Han before she became the woman we see today?" the journalist asked. Leon chuckled. "Knew her. I saved her." The words hit like a slap I'd been expecting for years but still couldn't dodge. "She was caught in something messy," he continued, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "Toxic relationship. Guy with too many debts, too much pride. I stepped in, paid off what he owed, helped her rebuild. Sometimes people need rescuing, even if they don't realize it." I felt my pulse in my throat. He was rewriting history, turning my downfall into his charity, her strength into his narrative. And worst of all, she didn't even know. The journalist gasped softly. "So, the rumors were true. You were the reason she was able to start her foundation." Leon smirked. "Let's just say, I gave her freedom. What she did with it, that's all her brilliance." Every word twisted tighter around my chest. Freedom. That's what he called it. The same freedom that tore her away from me, built on lies and guilt and my own cowardly silence. My fists clenched. For years, I'd told myself I was the villain, that I deserved her silence, that I'd lost her because of my weakness. But hearing him take credit for her pain, for her healing, made something in me finally fracture. The conversation ended with laughter and camera flashes. Leon straightened his tie, gave the journalist his good side, then walked toward the elevator. Perfectly composed, perfectly rotten. I could have confronted him then, could have told the truth, shattered the story he built, but I didn't, because silence had always been my weapon, and my wound. I left the building and stepped into the rain again. This time, it wasn't gentle. It was cold, relentless, like the sky itself wanted to wash the lies off me. I walked aimlessly, my shoes sinking into puddles, my reflection warping in every ripple. Leon's words replayed in my mind, louder each time. I paid off what he owed. I gave her freedom. He hadn't freed her. He'd bought her story, and I'd sold it, the moment I stayed quiet, because I did owe him. He had paid my debts, but not out of mercy. He'd done it to own the ending, and I let him, because at the time, I thought losing her was better than seeing her ruined with me. I thought silence was love. It wasn't. It was cowardice with a halo. By the time I reached my apartment, I was drenched, inside and out. I sat in the dark, listening to the rain batter the window, and opened my old notebook, the one where I used to sketch ideas with Mira back when dreams were cheap. Inside were faded words, half smudged. "We'll build something honest someday." I laughed under my breath. Honest? What a foreign word. The truth was simple. Leon had rewritten our past, and I'd given him the ink. The next morning, headlines bloomed like rot. "The man who saved Dr. Han. Leon Park's hidden generosity. Debt to destiny. The untold story behind the Han Foundation." His lies had become gospel overnight. Every article painted him as a hero, every quote a knife. And Mira. She posted a thank you note online. Public gratitude, graceful, diplomatic. She called him a pillar of support in difficult times. I could almost hear her voice. Calm, careful, professional. But between the lines, I saw the same wound I left behind. She didn't know the truth, not the full one. The real interest she'd paid wasn't money. It was time. It was healing. It was years of building strength from a story that had been poisoned at the root. That night, I went to the Foundation's office. I don't even know why. Maybe I wanted to come clean. Maybe I just wanted to see her again, one last time before Leon Yu's lies sealed us into a version of history that wasn't ours. The building was mostly dark, save for one window on the top floor glowing faintly. She was still there. I could see her through the glass, alone, papers scattered, her silver dress replaced by a plain white blouse. She looked tired, not defeated. The kind of tired that comes from carrying other people's pain too long. I stood outside for almost an hour before she finally noticed me. Her gaze met mine through the rain-blurred glass. No surprise, no anger, just quiet recognition. She didn't come down, and I didn't go up. Maybe that's what we were now. Two people separated not by distance, but by stories we never corrected. Later, I wrote her a letter. No address, no return name, just words I needed to say, even if she never read them. Mira, they told you Leon saved you, that he freed you. But that's not true. He paid for my silence, not your freedom. I let him rewrite what we had because I thought it would protect you. I was wrong. My silence became his weapon. And now, the world believes a lie I helped build. You once told me, pain demands payment. Maybe this is mine. But I need you to know, you were never rescued. You rescued yourself. The interest wasn't the debt. It was the years you spent healing from what should have been honest. I'm sorry for paying with your peace. Rian, I folded it, left it on her Foundation's doorstep before dawn, and walked away. As the city woke, I passed a newsstand displaying her photo again. Smiling, radiant, untouchable. Next to it was Leon's face, grinning like a man who just bought redemption on sale. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, just exhaustion, because I finally understood the cruel math of it all. For every lie, there's a cost. For every silence, an interest. And sometimes the highest price isn't money or reputation. It's being erased from the story of someone you once called home. That night, I didn't dream, but I heard her voice in the dark, soft, distant, echoing through the years. Rian, don't let the tide take you too. Maybe this was the tide. Maybe this was what it meant to drown slowly. Not in water, but in truth, unpaid. Still, somewhere inside, beneath the guilt and noise, a quiet resolve began to form. If Leon built his empire on lies, then maybe it was time someone told the truth. Not for revenge, but for balance. Because love might fade, but integrity, that's the only debt worth collecting. The night air was colder than I remembered. The gala had ended hours ago, but its echoes still clung to the street. Faint laughter, heels clicking away into the dark, the smell of perfume tangled with rain. The banners fluttered under dim light, their edges damp, as if even they were tired of pretending. And there she was, Mira, standing alone beneath a flickering streetlight, her silver dress catching the last breath of the night. Her hair was pinned up, but a few strands had escaped, curling against her cheek. The same cheek I once kissed on nights when I thought love was enough to fix everything. It wasn't. I hesitated at first, afraid that walking closer might break the fragile stillness between us. But the words I'd buried for 3 years pressed against my chest, demanding release. So I stepped forward. Each sound of my shoe against the wet pavement felt like an apology. Clumsy, late, but honest. Mira. She didn't move, didn't flinch. Her gaze was fixed on the puddle at her feet, the light above her flickering like a pulse, steady, unsteady, then gone. For a second, I thought she might walk away, but she didn't. She stayed, which somehow hurt more. "I never wanted the money," I said. The words came out like breath I'd been holding too long. They sounded small, almost childish compared to the storm in my chest. She still didn't turn around. Her voice, when it came, was quiet, but sharp enough to slice through years of distance. "I know." A pause, a small exhale, then, "But you took it anyway." And just like that, the streetlight flickered again, landing half her face in shadow, half in glow. The perfect mirror of what we'd become. Half truth, half ghost. I wanted to tell her everything. How I hated myself for signing that contract. How I'd watched her cry through the crack of a closing door. How I'd spent every day since trying to buy back my soul with regret. But the words didn't fit. They never do when you're confessing too late. "I thought," I started, my voice trembling. "I thought I was protecting you." She turned then, slowly, deliberately, and when her eyes met mine, I felt it. That sharp, quiet ache of recognition. The same eyes that once softened for me now looked through me, not into me. Her lips curved, not into a smile, but into something sadder, more final. "No, Ryan," she said softly. "You weren't protecting me." A step closer, the air between us felt electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. "You were protecting your pride." Her words didn't echo. They landed, like stones into water, rippling outward, reaching every memory I'd ever buried. And she was right. Every sacrifice I'd made, every lie I'd told myself, had been dressed as selflessness but stitched with ego. I didn't want her to see me weak, so I made her see me cruel. It was easier that way. For me, not for her. "Mira," my voice cracked. I tried to find her gaze again, but she looked away toward the rain. "I used to think," she whispered, "that love could survive anything, even betrayal." Her tone wasn't angry. That would have been easier to bear. It was calm, tired, like she'd already forgiven me a long time ago just to set herself free. "But it can't," she said. "Not when pride walks in wearing love's clothes." Her words trembled slightly, not from emotion, but from truth. And I realized then, forgiveness wasn't a bridge between us. It was a wall, one she'd built to keep her peace, not me. I took a step closer. The rain began again, soft, hesitant, like the sky was listening. "I heard what Leon said," I told her, "about me, about you, about that night." Her eyes darkened. "I know," she said. "Everyone heard." "No, Mira. He lied. He said he freed you, that he paid for your happiness." I swallowed. "But he didn't. He bought my silence. I let him twist everything because I thought it would protect you." She closed her eyes. A single drop, maybe rain, maybe tear, slid down her cheek. "And what did it protect, Ryan?" she asked quietly. "My heart? My reputation? Or your guilt?" I had no answer. The silence stretched between us, filled only by the hum of streetlight and the rhythm of rain. Finally, she sighed, the kind of sigh that sounds like the end of a prayer. "You could have told me the truth back then," she said. "We could have faced it together." "I know." "Then why didn't you?" Her voice cracked, the first fracture in her calm. I looked at her, at the woman she'd become, steady, strong, unreachable, and I thought of the boy I'd been, desperate, drowning, proud. "Because," I said, "I didn't think I was worth standing beside you." The rain picked up. The city lights blurred around us, golden streaks in the darkness. For a long moment, she just stared at me, as if weighing all the versions of me she'd once known. Then, softly, she said, "You were." My heart stilled. "But you stopped believing it," she continued. "And when you stopped, you made me stop too. That hurt more than every debt collector, every sleepless night, every lie I'd told, because it was true. I'd infected her love with my self-loathing until even she forgot how to see me through it. She stepped back slightly, her silver heels sinking into the wet pavement. "I rebuilt my life without you," she said, "not out of revenge, out of survival." Her voice wavered, but her eyes didn't. "I had to learn that I wasn't your mistake to fix. I was just someone who believed you could love without conditions." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I did love you." "I know." Her tone softened. "But you loved your fear more." Her words lingered in the air, heavy as thunder before it breaks. We stood there for a long time, two people surrounded by the ghosts of who they used to be. And in that silence, I saw it all again. The night I left her crying in that tiny apartment, the briefcase full of betrayal, the paper I signed without reading twice. Every choice I made had led to this moment, where I finally saw her, not as the girl I lost, but as the woman who survived me. Finally, she spoke again. "Why now, Rian? After all these years?" I hesitated. Then, quietly, "Because Leon made our story his, and I can't let the world believe his version anymore." She tilted her head slightly, studying me. "And what do you want from me? Forgiveness?" I shook my head. "No, just the truth, even if it hurts." Her eyes softened then, the first warmth I'd felt from her in years. "Then here's the truth," she said. "You didn't just break my heart, Rian. You broke the version of me that believed love was enough to fix someone." She stepped forward, close enough that I could smell the rain on her skin. "But here's another truth," she whispered. "I'm still glad it was you." For a moment, the world stopped. No sound, no movement. Just her voice, her breath, her truth. I wanted to reach for her, to touch her hand, her hair, anything that could make the years disappear. But I didn't. Because this time, I understood. Some distances exist to protect what's left of love. The rain softened again. She turned to leave, her silhouette fading into the golden blur of the city. "Mira," I called out. She paused. "If you ever read my letter," she smiled faintly without turning. "I did." Then, after a heartbeat, and I cried. Her voice broke on the last word, not from pain, but release. Then she walked away. I stood there long after she was gone, beneath that flickering light that finally went out completely, leaving me in darkness that felt almost merciful. Maybe this was the confession I should have made years ago. Maybe it came too late. But for the first time in years, the guilt inside me quieted. Because she knew. Because I said it. Because silence had finally lost its hold. As I walked home, the rain stopped, and dawn began to break. Thin gold spilling across the clouds. I looked up, letting the light hit my face, and whispered to no one. She was right. I'd spent years protecting my pride, not her, and in doing so, I'd lost both. But now, maybe, just maybe, the truth was the first thing I didn't owe anyone for. There are two kinds of silence in this world. The one that kills you slowly, and the one that finally sets you free. For years, mine was the first kind. Tonight, I wanted it to be the second. The transfer window glowed on my laptop screen. A sterile, blinking cursor waiting for an amount to confirm. Numbers filled the box, followed by a pause. My heart stuttered as I typed the final line. Anonymous donation, the Han Foundation. It wasn't charity, it wasn't guilt, it was math. The quiet kind of math only remorse understands. I returned every cent Leon had ever given me, every coin soaked in betrayal, every dollar signed with cowardice. And then I added more. Interest, not the kind a bank demands, but the kind conscience collects. No note, no name, no explanation. Just money. Cold, clean and finally mine to give. The rain had stopped that morning, but the sky still looked like it was healing, gray fading into the faint promise of light. I stood by my window as the city woke, and for the first time, I didn't feel heavy. Empty, maybe, but not heavy. The donation confirmation pinged on my phone, followed by an email. "Thank you for your contribution to the Han Foundation. Your generosity will help countless families escape the cycle of debt." I read it once, then again. Each word sounded like a prayer whispered back to me. This wasn't redemption. Redemption would have meant she forgave me. This was something smaller, but purer. Accountability. Later that day, I passed by the Foundation's headquarters. They were hosting an event. Press, donors, cameras flashing. From across the street, I saw her. Mira. She stood before a sea of reporters, radiant under the morning light. Her name shimmered across the digital donation board behind her. Dr. Mira Han. Founder, healer, survivor. Next to it, under Anonymous Major Contribution, a new figure had appeared. The one I sent. The crowd cheered. She smiled, graceful as always, unaware of the ghost watching from across the street. I didn't expect her to know. That was the point. Closure isn't about being seen. It's about finally being invisible in peace. I watched as she gave her speech, confident, kind, every word measured but full of soul. "The people we help," she said, "aren't just escaping debt. They're escaping the shame that comes with it, because shame is a currency that steals more than it gives." Her voice trembled slightly on that line, but she didn't falter, and I realized something. That tremble wasn't weakness. It was memory, a memory of me, of us, of what debt once cost her heart. The applause roared when she finished. Camera lights flashed like tiny suns, reflecting in her eyes. She smiled, not with pride, but with purpose. And I smiled too, because there, in front of everyone, she wasn't the girl I broke anymore. She was the woman who rebuilt herself with the shards. I stayed long enough to see her retreat backstage, surrounded by journalists and volunteers. Then I turned away, slipping into the crowd, faceless, forgotten, finally at peace with both. On my way home, I stopped at a small cafe we used to visit. The same cracked window, the same chipped mug. The barista didn't recognize me. Good. I ordered 2 coffees out of habit. One black, one caramel with extra sugar. The second one sat across from me, untouched, as the steam faded between us. I stared at it, smiled, and whispered quietly, "Yours still gets cold too fast." It was stupid, but it was honest. The news spread quickly. Anonymous donor gives $250,000 to Debt Relief Foundation. Dr. Mira Han credits mysterious benefactor for record-breaking milestone. She never mentioned my name, but when she spoke on camera later that night, her eyes softened. Just a little. Enough for me to know she knew. Maybe she recognized the gesture, maybe she didn't. It didn't matter, because this wasn't a gift. It was a return. That night, I sat alone on my balcony, rain tapping gently against the railing. Not furious, not sad, just cleansing. The city hummed quietly below. Life was moving forward, with or without me. I opened my notebook again, the same one filled with smudged dreams. This time, I wrote something new. Some debts are paid in silence, some in distance. The hardest ones are paid in watching someone you love rise without you. I closed it and leaned back, letting the drizzle hit my face. It didn't burn this time. It felt deserved. I thought of Leon then, the man who thought money could rewrite fate. I wondered how it felt now, knowing his empire of lies was built on someone else's truth, because Mira no longer needed saving, and I no longer needed pretending. The same money he used to buy my silence was now fueling her voice, her movement, her mercy. Maybe that was the universe's quiet joke, that what began as a transaction ended as transformation. A few weeks later, I received a letter in my mailbox. No return address, just a single folded page with careful handwriting I knew too well. Rian, I saw the donation. I recognized the amount. I also recognized the silence. I don't need to know why you did it, but I want you to know what it meant. For years, I thought I was the only one paying the price. I see now that you've been paying too, just differently. We both carried interest we didn't owe. Maybe this is how we clear it. Thank you. Mira, I read it once, then twice. By the third time, my vision blurred. She didn't say she forgave me. She didn't have to. The words between her lines said enough. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it between the pages of my old notebook, right next to our first sketch together. 2 broken promises now resting side by side, finally quiet. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The city smelled like wet pavement and beginnings. I looked up, and for the first time, the sky didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. They say karma comes for everyone. Maybe they're right, but I've learned it doesn't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes karma comes softly, in the form of an email confirmation, a returned balance, a whispered thank you. Sometimes it comes as peace. I checked my phone one last time. A new headline blinked on the screen. Dr. Hand's foundation expands to 3 new cities. Anonymous benefactor's legacy continues to inspire hope. Legacy. That word used to feel distant. Now, it just felt earned. I smiled, because for the first time in years, my story didn't end with loss. It ended with balance. And maybe that's what love becomes when it matures. Not fire, not forgiveness, but equilibrium. I closed my eyes, breathed in the clean night air, and whispered the final truth. She paid the interest with tears. I paid it with time. And somewhere between her healing and my silence, we were finally even. There's a strange kind of silence that follows closure. The kind that doesn't ache, doesn't scream, just hums. That's what filled my apartment the morning her letter arrived. It came in a plain white envelope, unmarked except for my name. The handwriting was delicate, precise, the same script she used when she used to leave me notes on napkins during our late cafe nights. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at it, tracing the faint curve of each letter as though they were veins running back into a heart I once knew. For 3 hours, it sat there on my desk, waiting, breathing, condemning. When I finally unfolded the paper, there wasn't a paragraph, not even a sentence, just one line. Thank you for paying back what you owed, but some tears can be refunded. That was it. No greeting, no signature, no closure, just truth. The kind that burns slow, not sharp. I read it again, then again, until the ink began to blur, not from water, but from the gravity of the words. There it was, the final interest, not the kind you calculate, the kind you carry. All those nights I spent replaying our story, convincing myself I'd done right by returning the money, it turns out the real debt wasn't in numbers. It was in moments I couldn't return. Her trust, her laughter, the version of me she once believed in. Those were the tears she meant. And she was right. You can't refund a wound. You can only stop pretending it doesn't bleed. I folded the letter carefully, almost reverently, and set it beside my coffee. The steam from the cup brushed the paper's edge, making it curl slightly, like it was flinching from me. I wanted to write back, to explain, to say I never meant to hurt you. But she already knew that. Intentions don't heal scars, actions do. And I'd already spent my last good one. So instead, I whispered into the empty room, I know. And that was enough. The next few days passed quietly. No more headlines. No more mentions of anonymous donors. Just the steady hum of the world moving on without me. Sometimes I wondered if she thought of me, not with longing, but with clarity. the kind you feel when you finally forgive a storm for raining. And sometimes that was enough to keep me still. One evening, I found myself back at the pier, the same one where I used to wait for her after her night shifts, coffee in one hand, flowers in the other. The benches were the same, though older, the lights dimmer, the air colder. I sat down, letter in hand, watching the water catch the reflection of the city. Every ripple looked like memory, distorted, beautiful, irretrievable. I unfolded her words again, just to feel them echo. Some tears can't be refunded. She didn't mean cruelty. She meant truth. And truth, I've learned, is the final currency between two people who once loved each other. I took a deep breath and looked out over the water. For the first time, I didn't wish she were sitting beside me. I wished she was happy, wherever that was. Because maybe love doesn't end when people leave. Maybe it ends when you finally stop hoping they'll come back. And in that moment, I did. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A news notification. The Han Foundation expands to Southeast Asia. Her smile filled the thumbnail image. Bright, effortless, unstoppable. I stared at it for a long time, then turned off the screen. Not out of pain, but peace. She had become the woman she was always meant to be. And I had become the man who finally understood what that cost her. Later that night, I burned the letter. Not out of anger, not out of despair, but because some stories are meant to end in ashes, not echoes. The paper curled inward as the flame touched it, the ink fading into orange light. For a moment, it looked like her handwriting was dissolving into the air, her final words turning into something softer than forgiveness. When the last fragment turned black, I whispered the truth I should have said years ago. I'm sorry I made you cry. The wind carried the smoke away, scattering it over the dark water. Maybe that S where her tears went, too, somewhere the world couldn't reach them anymore. After that night, I started writing again. Not about her, not about love, but about consequence. About what it means to live after you've been forgiven by someone who owes you nothing. Each word felt like penance. Each story like repayment. And somewhere between the lines, I found her voice again. Not accusing, not angry, just quietly reminding me of who I could have been. Months turned into a year. The world didn't change much, but I did. Slowly, almost imperceptibly. I learned to live without replaying every what if. I learned to speak kindly about the woman who once hated me. I learned that sometimes losing her wasn't punishment. It was education. One afternoon, I visited a small exhibit on philanthropy at a local museum. In one corner, there was a display about Dr. Mira Han, her story, her impact, her foundation's milestones. Beside the photos, there was a quote printed in elegant lettering. Debt isn't just financial, it's emotional. It is what we owe each other for the kindness we didn't give in time. Dr. Mira Han. I stared at that quote for a long time, heart caught somewhere between ache and admiration, because she hadn't just healed, she'd turned pain into principle. And me? I was still learning how to turn regret into responsibility. As I left the exhibit, I caught my reflection in the glass door. Older, quieter, maybe even gentler. The man who once measured love in money now understood. Mercy doesn't come with receipts. It's a gift you only receive after you stop asking for it. That night, I walked home beneath the city lights. Each flicker above felt like her handwriting, fading but never forgotten. And for the first time, I said it out loud, not as confession, not as curse, but as truth. She healed. I didn't. And that's okay. Because maybe that's what the final interest really is. The lesson you keep paying long after the debt is gone.